Hello and welcome to this episode of Voices of Fostering. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by one of our foster carers who has been a foster carer for over a decade. Welcome to the podcast, Barrie.
Hello. Thanks, Helen. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Barrie. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. So you're on 11 years now, you and your husband, aren't you? Wow. Does it feel like it's gone by in a flash, or have you felt every one of those 11 years?
If I'm completely honest, I feel like I've lived 10 lifetimes. I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad thing, but yeah. There's a big difference between what how things started and how they have ended up. That's for sure. It's been a bit of a
Right.
roller coaster.
Oh, wow. What a tease. Right. Okay. Well, do start us from the beginning then. I imagine it goes back longer than 11 years. Sometimes I speak to people who say, they were thinking about becoming a foster carer for many years beforehand. How did it all start for you?
I'm going to be really honest and say mine was totally accidental. Okay. I was in my mid-20s and I was married, and we were having discussions about how could we welcome children to the home. So same-sex couple. So biology's out the window. So you start to think, right, well, what could a family setup sort of look like?
Yeah.
And we naturally navigated towards adoption. We spoke to adoption services, etc., and they were very keen to have us, but they did point out the fact that our experience with children was pretty limited, sort of thing. We both worked really busy, sort of 50, 60 hours a week jobs as
Wow.
well. So there was a few glaring holes of how will this child fit into your life, etc. So I suppose, to put a long story really short, we had to, there was changes of employment, and there was changes things that we had to do in order to, I suppose, become better suited towards adoption. And just by an accident, I left a management role and went to go and work for a local authority, and I happened to go and work in the fostering team
Oh,
as
wow.
all admin. Yeah, all administration, etc. Nothing too exciting, but it really gave you a behind the scenes sort of a grasp of,
Yeah.
what children sort of went through. And it was interesting because I changed jobs and we were doing things. We were on a sort of year's pause to do a lot of tick boxes, so to speak, in order to go back to discuss adoption.
Yeah.
At the time I'm sitting there, I'm reading reports daily about these children. And I'm realizing that I've got, a lovely home. I live in a nice area. I've got a good support network. We've got a lot of love to give.
Yeah.
And I'm
You're
thinking to
ticking all
myself,
the boxes.
well,
Yeah.
we've already taken biology out of the equation anyway. So could I help these guys? And we kind of went into it in the concept of thinking, right, do you know what? We could maybe do this for a year or two, and that would be great, a great experience. And if we wanted to adopt in the future, then that's what we'll go ahead and do. But
Yeah.
maybe we'll do it. And I suppose working for a local authority, the first thing I thought of was, oh, well, I don't really want my work colleagues to come in and do my full assessment. The the lady 3 offices down, I don't need her to visit me and ask me all about my life. So actually, maybe I'll look at alternative options to foster.
Yeah.
And I happened to come across the NFA, and yeah, that's how the journey started, from a phone call.
Wow. Yeah. And then how quickly did it happen after that?
It was probably sort of, I think we were approved within about sort of 10 months, sort of thing. It was quite intensive. What I really loved was the fact that I felt held and supported through the whole thing. One thing that I pride telling people about our agency is the fact that we're well looked after. And, like, people are happy to talk, they're happy to have conversations, they're happy to guidance. And from being linked in with another carer who was doing, things that I can actually speak to, I suppose, just being able to ask the silly questions. Um, the supervising social worker that assessed us, I liked the fact that the first time she came to visit us, she said, listen, this is going to feel a little intrusive at times,
Yeah.
and you're going to feel like by Christmas, you should have me at your Christmas table. I should be coming for dinner, because that's how you're going to feel about me towards the end of this. But we're going to get through it together, and it's all for a good positive thing in the end, isn't it? And yeah, and we just got on with it.
I really liked how you described that. We hear the word supported a lot, but I really like how you said you felt held throughout the process. How would you elaborate on that? How did you feel like you were held through it?
Well, when a social worker first enters your house and you've got nothing really to do with social work, right? You feel on display. It's natural, okay? Someone's actually, like everything. We've always got the basic human right that we go home at the end of the night, we shut our doors, and that's our space, and the world can sort of stay out, sort of thing. When you're fostering, you have to actually acknowledge that you're opening that door and you are
Mm.
shining quite a bright light into your lives. And that feels really intrusive, which you would feel for any human being. And what I liked about the fact was that we weren't being tested. We weren't being scrutinized. They weren't trying to pick up bad things. I think all the maybe the sort of like the negative thoughts you can have when you're going through any assessment in life is almost like the inner saboteur saying to you, that might not be good enough, or maybe I should have said that differently. And what I really love about the agency, and particularly even in the beginning, was I didn't feel anything was the wrong thing to say. And I didn't feel that I didn't feel that they were looking for the picture perfect household. I came from a background of trauma, of a little bit of social work involvement, and let's just say parents that were not their best. And I guess at the start, I thought, well, this means I'll never have the opportunity to do this, because you'll look at where my upbringing was and you'll think, oh no. And actually, that was embraced and it was discussed, and we took strengths from it. So I just think even during the scrutiny, you realize that we're all going towards the same goal
Yeah,
here. If you are the right candidate and you could make a difference to even just one kid's life, then actually everybody's on the same page.
yeah,
You've just got to sit with those uncomfortable feelings, but let's push past and get it done. And
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's what I like, to be fair.
Yeah, you were working together, you were on the same team to get
Yeah.
the best outcome, really. So how did it all transpire then? You say it was about 10 months, then presumably you went to panel. What was that whole experience like?
So, for anyone that's watched reality TV, where like the X Factor or Britain's Got Talent or anything like that, take away the lights and the glam, and imagine that lovely long table of all these people that want to see what talent you have brought to the table, because that is panel.
Was Simon Cowell there?
Yeah, I kind of felt like he was going to pop out at one point, if I'm honest, and I just, it's a mix between that and This Is Your Life, because
Wow.
honestly,
Yeah.
you end that assessment period and you have got a document that reads like from maybe your great grandparents up to maybe 3 weeks before you go to panel. It's your
Mhm.
journey, and if you're doing that with a partner or a husband or a wife, it's their journey too, and it's quite an insightful read. Then you realize that you've just stepped into a room of maybe 6 or 7 people who have read your life story as
Yeah.
well. So and they all sort of ask their own questions, etc. But again, it's important to have that in your head and think, right, no one's trying to get you to fail here. People want to maybe clarify some things. People have
Yeah.
maybe spotted things in your assessment that we thought, this isn't a no, this wouldn't cause you not to be a foster carer, but we would like you to consider it. Maybe it can be the most subtle things that can be slightly bigger things. But I suppose, I was asked about the fact that, coming from difficult and complex relationships with my own parent, how I would find times of stress, etc., when I was receiving maybe complex behaviors from a young person, and where was my support network and how did I think I was going to manage that? It's a challenging question,
Mm.
but do you know what? It's the right question to be
Yeah.
asked, isn't it?
It's a very valid question to ask. Absolutely. Yeah. So then you passed assessment. Yeah, the panel day went well. And how long was it until you had your first child come and live with you?
Okay. Ooh, I think just under 3 months.
Oh,
Just under
right.
3 months. Yeah. So, yeah, because I went back to work. I went back to everyday life because I thought, right, okay, like I'm not sure, and being lucky enough to work for a local authority, they said to me, if you need flexibility because you do get a phone call, you know, we're good with that. So I went back to work, and yeah, there was you you get a few phone calls and you're given very small amounts of information about a particular person, and then you're asked if you think maybe you could be the match, sort of thing. and then you wait, you see, and sometimes it comes to something, and sometimes it doesn't, and that can be quite frustrating. And then suddenly someone says to you, "Yeah, you've been chosen. Yeah, this little person is coming to you," and that's quite a feeling, actually. That's quite a oh, actually, because you've been talking about it maybe for a year and a half, if you think about it. You've
Yeah.
maybe been thinking about it beforehand for longer, but you've been imagining this scenario in your head for a long time,
Yeah.
and then suddenly says, "Hey, X is going to arrive on Wednesday at 10 o'clock," and you think, "Oh, right then, that's going to happen, isn't it?" So it's quite epic.
And what are some of the practical things that you have to do in that moment? Have we got everything ready? Is there anything
Yeah.
particular that they need?
I think what I tend to do is I obviously you've got a nice setup room, you've got a nice sort of space, but what I like to do is I don't like to over prepare because what I've found and actually uh, I'll tell you a little story and then I'll explain what I mean by that. So the first person that was coming to stay with us was meant to arrive on a Tuesday, and at that time my husband had taken that Tuesday off his work because he said I would like to be there too, but
Yeah.
obviously you will be at home, I will be at work, and I was like great. Anyone that's listening that either is a foster carer or thinking about being a foster carer, sometimes those time scales just don't go to plan. So you have to prepare yourself. So he actually was going to come on Thursday, and there was no way that my husband could take that day off work. It just wasn't a possibility. And I
Yeah.
said, listen, it's fine, it's okay. So this little dude arrives. His social worker comes in. I open the door, and I'm not going to lie to you, the nerves, because you're thinking, there's a small person out there, and they're going to leave the small person with me. And
Yeah.
what if they like me? What if they don't? But you put your big boy face on, and you open the door, and you say hello, and you get a nervous smile. And I kid you not, and it doesn't always happen like this for anyone that is listening, but I kid you not, the social worker walked in. She said, "Hey, and you are," and I introduced myself, and she said, "Well, this is," and introduced the little dude. And I went, "Hey," and she went, "And where will his room be?" And I went, "Oh, I will go and have a look." And she's like, "All right, you can put your things over there if you want, mate." So he put his things down, and we went into the living room, and he sat down, and she went, "Right, great. I've actually got a meeting in about an hour, so I'm going to leave him here, and I'll give you guys a call, and you'll be all right. Yeah, I'll come and visit you in about 2 days." And she walked out my front door.
And you're like, what now?
And this little guy was, I think, about 9, and I'm a big kid at heart, which is probably coming across really quite easy. And I sort of looked up and I said to him, and I used the word "dude," which is so uncool, and it was back then still. And I said to him, "Dude, this is a bit weird, right? You're just here, you don't know me, I don't know you, and we're just sitting on the sofa and we're looking at each other." And he went, "Mm-hmm," and I went, "So, how about we just get in the car, right? We go to the supermarket because I'm sure you like particular cereal." I was like, "I'm sure there's some stuff you want. You want to eat food that you enjoy." I was like, "Why don't we go out and shop and make sure that Barry's got everything in here that you actually like,
Yeah.
and then maybe like get like lunch or something, or we could just sit here in silence and look at each other really uncomfortable." And he laughed and he went, "I think we should get in the car." And I went, "That is a great idea." So to kind of go back to your original point, we have the basics because you never know when that call's going to come and what they're going to need.
Yeah.
But I like to take them out pretty soon, sometimes day one actually, if they're up to it. I like to take them out, even if it's just for a food shop, just to say, "Oh, is that your favorite cereal?" Right? We're going to I've got your snack box ready. What do you like? Oh, you like those duvet covers, do you? Well, oh, all right, that's cool. Not every child will be up to it, and you learn that through the
Yeah.
process. But so you've got all those standard things in your home, but I do like to take them out because you just can't describe how terrifying it must be
Yeah.
that these kids are just arriving in your home. Like if someone said to me as a 41-year-old man, "I'm just going to grab a suitcase of your belongings, I'm going to put you back in the car, and I'm going to do exactly what happened in your first placement,
Yeah.
and I'm going to leave you there," I would be a nervous wreck hiding behind the sofa. It'd be
Yeah.
awful. So I guess I use the settling in thing just to break the ice a bit.
Yeah.
And as you can tell, and bad dad jokes work for me really well because they can laugh at me, and that's okay.
So yeah, going back to that first child then, by the time Andrew got home from work, were you best mates? Was it going well?
Well, it was going well, but what's really funny is, now I'm going to throw a complete whirlwind at you. So I was approved to foster with my first husband. So I have been a foster carer,
Oh.
married, separated,
Oh.
divorced, single, dating, live with, and married.
Oh my goodness, I'm
So
so sorry. I assumed. I
no,
shouldn't have
no, no,
assumed.
no, no, no. But it's good. Imagine how many seconds I've had in my house. That's all I can say.
Well, I mean, there's lots to talk about there, which we've talked about on the podcast before. That, when life does change and you do separate from somebody and then someone new comes into your life, how have you navigated all of that with fostering? Because obviously that all needs to be taken into consideration, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's you've got to be child centered. You've got to be in a place where, listen, you have got difficulties, you've got challenges, things are changing in your lives. We've had, uh, you can have these obstacles, but what you've got to do is you've got to say, well, I've got to keep everything as safe and secure for the children. On the flip side of that, you need to be upfront and honest and use your social work team as they're intended to do. Okay, if you've got a difficult life situation that's coming, you don't pick the carpet up and sweep it under. Okay, you're not helping you're not helping the kid, and actually, it's not going to go well. You have to meet these things face on, and you have to say, listen, life is changing. I need some advice. I need to know what's going to happen. It is with me, it's my intent to foster. It's my intent to keep the children that I have right now in the home that they are staying in. I don't know how to navigate this. I've never done this before. I need you guys to come to the table and help me. So, and it's complex because you've got your own emotions, you've got their
Yeah.
emotions, and then you've got the red tape of being a foster carer. But what I can say, I suppose, in a sort of positive light is it can be done. It can be done. And it's just it goes back to being assessed. If you can get comfortable with being uncomfortable and being assessed, then if life does throw you, the odds, what do you call it, blockade or issue or whatever,
Curveball.
you're more, yeah, curveball, definitely.
Yeah.
That's a better word. I think if life throws you that, you are better prepared because you're used to going to your social work team who, hold you when they need to, and you
Mhm.
can say, oh, well, this is gonna happen. What do we do next?
Yeah. So this is some of the roller coaster that you teased us with at the beginning, really, isn't it? So what have been some other sort of highlights for you? Maybe some of the ups, maybe some of the downs, maybe some of the times that have really shaped you as a foster carer. Is there anything else that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the cliches to say that you make a difference to some sort of children's lives, and that can be really lovely to feel. But I think what I've learned over the 10 years is when I went into fostering, I was so new at it, and I looked at it probably from quite a standard parenting point of view. I hadn't been a parent myself, but we all have the knowledge of what we think a parent should sort of be. And I think fostering turned that on its head. I think when I finally started to think a bit more therapeutically, and I think when I started to realize the rejection and the experiences that these children had been through, I realized that we as the adults were the linchpin. So fostering is incredibly difficult at times, right? Anyone that does this role, it's a lifestyle. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not a switch off at the weekend. There is no annual leave, etc. And I will put a nice positive. I'm still doing it after 11 years with all that said. But I think what you have to understand is you are going to be tested, and the ups and the downs are exactly the same thing for me because what happens is a young person enters your home and they've already decided you're going to fail them. That's not what you did. That's not what you said. That's nothing to do with you. You are going to fail them. That's how they feel.
Yeah.
And you have to put yourself out there and say, I am here. And then what they're going to do is they're going to challenge you. And I could speak for 3 hours, which I won't, about all the different complex behaviors and things like that you can come across, or ways of them communicating that they are testing you. Because they can't just say to you, I think you're going to let me down. Can we have a conversation about it? They're going to have a massive tantrum in a supermarket and lie on the floor and maybe be an 11-year-old and collapse the display and scream and shout at you. And you, in the thick of those moments, can either think, oh my God, what a naughty child, that's ridiculous, I need to get them told. Good luck with that approach. Or you have to find a way of saying, well, listen, what are they trying to tell me? Behavior is a conversation. right? They're scared, they're not feeling that great. So first thing I've got to do, I've got to break this tantrum in a non-growly way, and then I can maybe what do you call it, do repair work. And I think one of the biggest times that I can laugh at myself more often is that particular scenario of being in a Marks and Spencer's and then having a display, crash down and me putting my basket down, lying on the floor next to the young person and kicking off, pretending to cry, kicking off, pushing things. I mean, per on the, passerbys, God knows what they thought. And the young person very quickly stopped and looked at me and leaned into my ear and he said to me, "Could you get up? You're really embarrassing me." And I went, "I'll make you a deal. I'll get up if you get up, yeah? Because we're probably embarrassing each other, yeah?" And he went, "Yeah." I went, "Probably a better idea just to buy dinner and go then." And he went, "Yeah, just get up." And it broke it, and I'm not saying that works forever, but I guess those are the moments that I look back and at the time I thought, oh God, I don't know what to do. And I'm not saying what I'm telling you that I did was right. I'm just saying to you that that's what my gut told me. Be fun, be stupid, distract, and that young person's now quite a successful adult. And we can now sit and have a real good giggle about the time that the grown up that was meant to be responsible had a tantrum in the supermarket next
Mm.
to him. It's a real, it's moments like that through your journey that you just think back and you think it's hilarious. I I like my comfort. I like my holidays to have plumbing and heating and all mod cons. And I still laugh with that first little guy that came to stay because I tried to tempt him with hotels with swimming pools, and I ended up in a glamping pod with no bathroom and campfires outside to cook with. And he still to this day laughs with me because he knows how much of a princess I can be about where I go on holiday. And he thinks, God, you must have really liked me to go there with me. And I was like, yep, yep, there you go. If that doesn't show love, I don't know what does, you know?
Yeah.
So it's all those times.
It sounds like you've learned so much, Barry, and you've really, you've adapted to different situations. You've sort of I don't know, maybe compromise sometimes. There's been a lot of compromise, as you say. You'd love to stay in a fancy hotel, but you were in a glamping pod. You must feel quite proud of yourself for all you've achieved for these children.
I mean, I don't know. I think maybe I'm always my biggest critic. I'll sometimes go, well, I did that, but maybe I could have done that sort of thing. It's nice to see where they're at. It's nice to see if their journey was only 3 months with you or it was 6 years with you. It's nice to see that they go and they do their thing, but they know they can come back. They know when they finally left their care journey and all this professional red tape that your family structure is built around, which takes a bit of time to get used to. Um, you can throw all that away in the future and you can just be the guy at the end of the phone that, they maybe will come up for Easter dinner or they'll nip in to see or you'll go and visit them or just a text and things like that. And you just think to yourself, well, I wouldn't say I feel proud of myself, but I will say that it's moments like that I just think, oh, well, you must have done something right then, right?
Yeah.
Like I had a nice phone call yesterday with one of my oldest, and he randomly called to tell me that he got really good news at work, and I was just like, this is amazing, you've just had a promotion, and he was
Yeah.
like, it's not a big deal. I was like, well, it's a big deal to me, and I came off the phone and I thought he had the option to call whoever he wanted to. He's called me to tell me about it. So yeah, that feels good, and it's those moments as well that they mean the most actually.
Well, I think you can definitely feel very, very proud of what you've achieved, Barry. Honestly, I really do. The difference you've made to, 10 children, is it? 10 children's lives over 11 years. And how long do you think you'll continue to do it for? Or can you just not answer that question?
I don't think there's a stop. I think you change who you think you can help in the situation. I think it's a good thing to point out in fostering, like as you know yourself, there's so many different types of fostering. Like there's people that just cover things like respite, and actually, do you know what? Like the ability to link in with another set of carers who feel like family who and also feel like family to the children, and the children get to go off and maybe have like a weekend with them and have a great time, and they want to go and they're excited, and you think to yourself, oh, I get a little weekend off, that's fantastic. Like everybody makes their contribution. So I suppose I don't have a this is when it'll finish.
Hmm.
I think at the moment I'm in a journey that I guess I've got two teenagers at the moment, which is a great age. I'm sure everybody would agree it's the best age in the world. And I guess you have a point where you feel like you're starting to take them into the next stages of their life, and you look and you peak a little bit, and think, right, what comes next? But actually, in our journey, we've gone slightly different. We've actually just adopted a baby, so
Oh, wow.
um, so that kind of makes us think at the moment that we're good with what we're doing. And when said youngsters maybe a bit older, maybe we will continue to invite kids into the home
Yeah.
later on.
Well, it's been wonderful to speak to you today, Barrie. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, best of luck with the future. Just keep up that incredible work.
Much appreciated. It's good to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Voices of Fostering. If you'd like to find out more, head online and search National Fostering Group and make this the year you foster.